Have you ever heard of someone who willingly chose to be hated, who carried the weight of the world alone, not for glory, not for recognition, but simply to protect the ones they loved? This is the story of Itachi Uchiha, a story not about power, but about restraint. Not about victory, but about sacrifice. Not about being understood, but about remaining faithful to a truth no one else could see. From an early age, Itachi lived surrounded by pressure and expectation. Born into a powerful clan, he was recognized as a prodigy, praised for his abilities, trusted with responsibilities far too heavy for someone so young. But talent, when combined with power, often attracts conflict. As tensions grew within his clan, the threat of a civil war became real. A war that would not only destroy his family, but plunge the entire village into chaos and cost countless innocent lives. Itachi found himself facing an impossible choice: protect his clan or protect the village. There was no path without loss, no decision without blood, no option that would allow him to remain innocent. So he chose to walk alone. He made a decision that would mark him forever as a traitor in the eyes of the world, a criminal, a monster. But beneath that image was something else entirely. A love that did not seek to be seen. A sacrifice made in silence. A willingness to be hated so others could live in peace. Itachi represents a kind of love that does not ask to be understood. A love that does not announce itself. A love that accepts solitude as its cost. Often, the deepest love expresses itself not through words, but through unbearable decisions carried in secret. There is a phrase attributed to Jesus that captures this truth with painful clarity. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. True love, when lived fully, is rarely comfortable. It wounds the one who carries it. Jesus knew the path he was choosing. He knew he would be rejected, humiliated, betrayed, and executed. And yet he still chose it. Not because it was easy, but because love demanded it. In a symbolic way, Itachi walks a similar path. He carries a guilt that does not belong to him. He bears the hatred of the world so others do not have to. He allows himself to become the villain so peace can survive. Both understood something most people avoid, that sometimes the suffering of one can spare the suffering of many. Itachi destroyed his reputation, accepted isolation, and became an enemy in the eyes of those he loved, all to protect his brother and prevent a war that would consume everything. This is not weakness. It is a form of strength that goes unnoticed. Throughout history, those who walk paths of truth are often misunderstood. Jesus himself was called a blasphemer, a liar, a threat. He was abandoned, judged, and condemned by those who could not see beyond appearances. The same fate follows Itachi. To the world, he is a murderer, a traitor, someone beyond redemption. But both knew there was a larger story unfolding, one that would only make sense in time. Faithfulness to a mission, especially when misunderstood, requires profound inner strength. Following truth often means accepting rejection, standing firm when there is no applause, remaining silent when defending yourself would be easier. In Christian thought, suffering is not glorified, but it is never meaningless. The suffering of Jesus was not wasted. It became the doorway to redemption. And Itachi's suffering, though fictional, reflects the same principle. He carried loneliness, guilt, and hatred, not to glorify pain, but to prevent something far worse. There is a quiet wisdom in this. Pain, when surrendered, can be transformed. Forgiveness lies at the heart of this transformation. Even in agony, Jesus chose forgiveness. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Itachi mirrors this posture. Hated by his own brother, hunted as a criminal, misunderstood until the end. Yet he never sought revenge, never returned hatred with hatred, never attempted to justify himself. Instead, he protected, he endured, he forgave. He died without clearing his name because his love was greater than his pride. This reflects one of the most challenging teachings of Jesus: to love those who wound us, to forgive without recognition, to be light in places consumed by darkness. Jesus did not seek admiration. He healed quietly, loved quietly, served quietly. He taught that true greatness is found not in being served but in serving. In the same way, Itachi lived his purpose in silence. No speeches, no explanations, no attempt to be remembered as a hero. Many of the most meaningful acts in life are never applauded. They happen in hidden places, visible only to God and to the conscience of the one who chooses them. This story challenges a culture obsessed with visibility, with validation, with being seen and affirmed. Sometimes, faithfulness requires choosing what is right, even when it costs your image, your reputation, and your comfort. Itachi reminds us that there is strength in vulnerability, wisdom in restraint, and dignity in silent service. He is not a religious figure. He is not a savior. But through his story, we can glimpse timeless principles: love that gives itself away, truth that remains firm even when rejected, and sacrifice that bears fruit long after the one who made it is gone. Redemption rarely arrives with noise. It grows quietly. In Itachi's story, truth is revealed in time. Seeds planted in silence eventually bloom. His brother comes to understand. Reconciliation becomes possible. In the Christian faith, this pattern is echoed in the resurrection. Suffering is not the end. Death is not the final word. What appears lost can be made new. If anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation. The old has passed away. The message is clear. No past is beyond redemption. No sacrifice done in love is wasted. Itachi's story endures because it touches something deeply human. The fear of being misunderstood, the cost of doing what is right, the loneliness of silent obedience. And perhaps that is why it resonates so strongly. Because many people know what it feels like to carry unseen burdens, to make hard choices without support, to remain faithful when no one is watching. The most important battles are rarely visible. They are fought within the heart, within conscience, within daily choices. And the true warrior is not the one who conquers others, but the one who endures without losing love. Itachi's life asks us a difficult question. Are we willing to love without recognition? To forgive without apology? To serve without applause? This kind of love transforms quietly. It changes the world from the inside out, not through force, but through surrender, not through domination, but through grace. That is the power of a love that chooses silence, and that is why this story stays with us. But there is something even deeper beneath Itachi's story. Because his greatest struggle was not the hatred of others. It was the way his choice reshaped how he saw himself. Once sacrifice became his mission, Itachi stopped seeing himself as someone who deserved peace. He stopped seeing himself as someone worthy of rest. He became someone who existed only to endure. And that is a dangerous transformation. When suffering becomes identity, pain is no longer something we hope to heal. It becomes something we believe we must carry forever. Itachi did not allow himself relief. He did not allow himself to be human. Every step he took was measured, every word restrained, every emotion buried beneath discipline and silence. Because he believed that if he ever laid the burden down, everything he sacrificed would lose meaning. This is a struggle many people know intimately. We convince ourselves that letting go would invalidate the pain we endured, that healing would somehow betray the suffering that shaped us. So we hold on. We hold on to guilt, to responsibility, to a version of ourselves forged in trauma. And like Itachi, we become prisoners of our own faithfulness. There is a quiet tragedy in that, because love that gives itself completely can sometimes forget to receive love in return. In spiritual terms, this is where surrender becomes essential. Jesus often spoke about rest, not as something earned through exhaustion, but as something received through trust. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Rest, in this sense, is not inactivity. It is the release of control. It is the acceptance that we were never meant to carry everything alone. Itachi never learned how to rest. He learned how to endure, how to survive, how to disappear behind a mission. Because rest would have required vulnerability. and vulnerability felt like danger. This reveals a painful truth about the human heart. We are often willing to sacrifice ourselves for others, but far less willing to believe that we too are allowed grace. Itachi could protect an entire village, yet he could not protect himself from self-condemnation. He could forgive others, yet he never forgave himself. And this internal conflict slowly consumes him, because living without rest is not strength. It is slow erosion. Over time, the weight becomes heavier, the silence louder, the loneliness sharper. Itachi's discipline kept him upright, but it also isolated him. And isolation is the hidden cost of silent sacrifice. From the outside, it may look noble. From the inside, it feels suffocating. This is why his story resonates beyond anime. Because many people live exactly this way. They do what is right. They protect others. They carry responsibilities no one sees. But they never stop to ask whether they were meant to carry it all forever. The Christian message does not glorify self-destruction. It speaks of sacrifice, yes, but always paired with love and restoration. Jesus gave himself completely, but he did not erase his own worth. Even in suffering, he knew who he was, and that identity allowed him to endure without losing himself. Itachi, on the other hand, slowly disappears behind the role he created. He becomes the villain so fully that he forgets the person he once was. This is what happens when purpose is severed from compassion, especially compassion toward oneself. There is another subtle lesson here. Itachi's silence protected others, but it also delayed truth. His brother grew in hatred, believing a lie. And while the lie served a temporary peace, it also planted seeds of future pain. This is not a condemnation of Itachi. It is a reminder that even the most loving choices carry consequences. Truth delayed is not truth denied, but it does shape the journey. And this tension reflects a deep spiritual paradox. There are moments when silence protects, and moments when silence wounds. Wisdom lies in discerning the difference. Jesus himself was silent before his accusers, yet outspoken when truth demanded it. Silence, then, is not virtue by default. It is a tool that must be guided by love. Itachi's silence was born of love, but it came at a devastating personal cost. Eventually, truth surfaces, and when it does, it brings both healing and grief. Sasuke learns the truth and realizes that everything he believed was incomplete. The hatred he carried was misplaced. The enemy he pursued was never the enemy. This revelation does not erase the pain, but it reframes it. And reframing pain is often the first step toward redemption. In the Christian worldview, revelation often arrives after endurance. After the cross comes resurrection. After darkness comes understanding. This does not make suffering good, but it makes it meaningful. Itachi's life shows us that meaning can outlive the one who carries it. His sacrifice does not end with his death. It continues through reconciliation, through the softening of a hardened heart. And this is where his story quietly redeems itself, not because he is celebrated, but because love finally bears fruit. There is something profoundly human in that. We want our sacrifices to matter. We want our pain to lead somewhere. And when it does, even quietly, it restores dignity to everything we endured. Still, Itachi's story leaves us with unresolved tension, because it forces us to ask, how much should one person carry? When does sacrifice cross into self-erasure? And is love meant to destroy the one who gives it? The teachings of Jesus offer a boundary here. Love gives itself, but it does not deny truth. It serves, but it does not abandon identity. Jesus surrendered his life, but never surrendered his worth. This distinction matters, because love that consumes the self entirely eventually collapses. True love sustains. Itachi's journey shows us both sides of sacrifice, its beauty and its cost. And perhaps that is why it feels so real. Because real love is rarely simple. It is messy, it is costly, and it often asks more than we think we can give. But it also invites reflection, not to imitate suffering blindly, but to learn where love must be anchored. Anchored in truth, anchored in humility, anchored in the understanding that even those who serve in silence are still allowed rest. The final lesson of Itachi's story is not that we must suffer to be good. It is that love must be rooted in something deeper than pain, rooted in grace. And grace, unlike endurance, does not exhaust the soul. It restores it.